Ukrainian forces surrender at Mariupol, all as Europe bows to Putin's demands. We're going to look at the latest massive development on the battlefront in Ukraine. We're going to see how European leaders are basically folding before Putin. And stick to the very end of this video when I'll expose the blatant propaganda that you've been fed by the lamestream media. You're not going to want to miss this. Greetings, everyone. Dr. Steve here with you. Great to be with you as always. I am your daily fake news antidote, so come on in to your Patriot Professor's Den where I help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. Have you ever done so? You know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe. And before we begin, if you have an IRA, 401k, or savings account, things are obviously getting pretty scary out there. The Biden administration has already printed more money in the past 2 years than the previous 100 years combined. The national debt just hit a record $30 trillion, and inflation is the highest we've seen in 40 years since 1982. If you have retirement savings, your money could be at serious risk, and that is where you need to talk to our good friends over at Goldco. Goldco will help you find out how you can protect your retirement with gold and silver before it's too late. And as a special incentive, click on that link below, and Goldco will give you up to $10,000 in free silver when you open up an account. You're that right. $10,000 in free silver. So don't wait. This is a limited time offer. Click on that link below or go to Turley TalksLikesGold.com. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. Look, as we've been analyzing what's been happening in Ukraine since the end of February, I've argued that the best way to make sense of what's going on is to understand everything in relation to three frames, okay? These are three different but interrelated battles that are actually going on. So you've got military battles, you've got money battles, and you've got media battles. Those are your three frames. There's, of course, a mass military battle going on. There's a money battle going on with all the international sanctions that are being placed on Russia. And, of course, there is a media battle, an info war, as it were, right? A battle of psyops that's trying to control the narrative of what's happening in both the military and money arenas. Another way of thinking about it is we got battles, banks, and brainwashing, right, as it were. And what we need to understand is how each one is playing out in and of itself and how each vertical coheres with one another. Whatever's happening militarily needs to be connected with and related to what's happening monetarily with the sanctions and the like, and in the process, compared and contrasted with what we're being told in the media. So that's what I want to do for you here. So first, let's start on the state of things on the battlefield. Now, we have a major development as of today, and like we talked about last week, it does not at all line up with what Fox News and CNN and all the other major Western legacy news outlets have been telling us has been happening over the last several weeks. As of today, the key port city of Mariupol has fallen into Russian hands. Actually, just to bring this home in terms of the media's incompetence, you actually have to search very hard to find that headline. But that's precisely what has just happened as of today. Now, if you don't know, the city of Mariupol is geographically situated between the Donbass region and Crimea. And in many respects, it was the only thing standing in the way between Russian forces and a fully accessible land bridge to Crimea, which, of course, Russia next backed in 2014. Now, for the last several weeks, thousands of Ukrainian troops have been holed up inside the Avastal steel plant in Mariupol, and they've been mounting what the media has been calling a brave and heroic resistance against Russian forces. And for sure, they have been, no question. However, the media has been going into full cheerleader mode, and so you have the BBC reporting that this fight is for the heart of this war in Mariupol, and that they were frustrating Russian troops, had no idea what to do and how to take them on and the like. But alas, your propaganda is just that. And eventually, as we talked about in last week's video, eventually reality begins to break through all the nonsense. The Ukrainian resistance has indeed surrendered to Russian allied forces, just as a number of analysts predicted. Analysts who, by the way, the lamestream media generally ignores. In an official press briefing issued by the Russian military defense, Officials affirm that 265 Ukrainian soldiers holed up in the Azovstal steel plant have in fact surrendered. That was the word they used. They surrendered to Russian forces, and the fighting there has officially come to an end. Russia's completely taken over this key port city, and as a result, Russian allied forces, those including those from the Donetsk and Lugansk military, as well as the Chechen forces that were so instrumental in taking over Mariupol, they will now, in effect, have full control of more than 80% of Ukraine's Black Sea coastline, which, as the BBC describes it, will effectively cut off Ukraine from its maritime trade and further isolate it from the world. Now, of course, there's still the key port city of Odessa that has yet to fall, but even apart from that, Ukraine is becoming, for all practical purposes, a landlocked region. Now, of course, this was not supposed to happen. According to what we've been told by our media, social media, Ukrainian forces were crushing the Russians. But again, like what we talked about last week, we're starting to see that that narrative is crumbling. Perhaps you saw the tweet that went out the other day from a 4-star general. I'm not even going to say who because it's so embarrassing. But he tweeted out a video of what he claimed was a Russian aircraft getting nailed by Ukrainian missile defense systems. Just one problem. The footage he tweeted out was from a video game. I kid you not. This is a 4-star general. Or perhaps you saw this Reuters report on Ukraine doing what? Well, of course, they do what only Ukraine does, and that's they're destroying the Russians. That's all we ever hear about from these cheerleaders disguised as journalists. And I kid you not, Reuters ran this story with a picture, an image of a bunch of dudes holding paintball guns. I mean, this is beyond embarrassing. This is the ghost of Kiev all over again. And so it's no surprise that given how much the fall of Mariupol has embarrassed the legacy media's coverage, it's no surprise that as of today, they've been left with no other choice than to gaslight what happened. Look at some of these headlines. This one is from Politico. More than 260 Ukrainian fighters evacuated from Mariupol steelworks. And the byline reads, Ukraine needs Ukrainian heroes to be alive, President Vladimir Zelensky said after they were taken to areas under Russia's control. They were evacuees taken to areas under Russian control. In other words, they unconditionally surrendered to enemy forces and are now officially POWs. Here's CNN trying to gaslight this whole propaganda fail. The battle for Mariupol nears end as Ukraine declares combat mission over. That's right. Ukraine has made the sovereign unilateral decision to declare that they are done with these silly Russians. They don't have time to play these silly Russian games in Mariupol. NBC News followed suit. Ukraine declares end to battle for Mariupol, ceding control of key port city to Russia. And the byline reads, the evacuation of Ukrainian troops from the Azovstal steel plant represents an important but costly victory for Moscow. So Ukraine has declared an end to the battle. Ukraine is in charge, you see. And they have evacuated, right? They've evacuated their troops. ABC News ran the headline, Ukraine says mission at Mariupol steel mill is now complete. They just published the equivalent of mission accomplished, and they did it with a straight face. So as you can see, Ukrainians unconditionally surrendering to Russian forces, well, that's just simply an evacuation. That's right. Russians retreat, Ukrainians evacuate. Russians sweat, Ukrainians glisten. That's what cheerleading, passing as reporting gives you. The problem, of course, is that we don't necessarily know what's happening on the battlefield. That requires very methodic, patient analysis. And when we get that kind of analysis, patient, methodic, it's nothing like what the lamestream media is telling us. And now we're starting to see it. Mariupol is but the latest major city to fall. We've already seen the fall of Kherson to Russian forces. We've seen the fall of Popasnaya to Russian forces. And on we go. Russia is taking over city after city. And we got 4-star generals tweeting out video games as war propaganda. But it gets worse. If that's what's happening on the military side of things, things are even worse on the monetary side of things. Look at this headline from Zero Hedge. Europe predicts full-blown stagflationary shock if Russian gas supplies disrupted, folds to Putin's payment demands. Now, if you don't know, Russian President Vladimir Putin is requiring Europe to pay for their gas in rubles. Remember, Europe gets about 40% of their gas from Russia, and Europe has also sanctioned the ruble, freezing the Russian central bank's foreign assets in the hopes of sinking the ruble. That, of course, has not happened. And so, obviously, Putin is going to require European nations to pay for their gas in rubles. In other words, they're going to have to pay in a currency that EU nations can't confiscate. Now, over the last several weeks, European leaders have been having a temper tantrum over this. They even threatened to hold their breaths and turn blue until Putin got rid of his rumble requirement. But of course, all they were doing was proving that Putin was in the driver's seat. He controlled the gas and the oil and the food and the fertilizer, and European leaders didn't. And so what has now happened is that the EU is basically folded to Putin and is now authorizing imports of Russian national gas by opening up accounts through Gazprom Bank and converting their euros into rubles. Russia's getting exactly what it wants. And so it's no coincidence that more and more media outlets like the Epoch Times are reporting that Russian oil revenues are up 50% ever since Western economic sanctions were imposed, basically rendering the sanctions null and void. Now, I have to say that since we've got the likes of Dan Crenshaw, who Tucker Carlson is calling the eye patch McCain, because we've got the likes of Crenshaw, who believes that if you even so much as question the wisdom of wasting $40 billion in what is clearly a lost cause in Ukraine, then you must be a parrot for Putin. Okay, you're just a Soviet stooge and you need to just shut up. So in light of the Liz Cheney wing of the Republican Party's automatic dismissals of alternative understandings of what's actually happening here, I must reiterate, none of this brings me any glee. Again, I am an Orthodox Christian. I pray every morning for the peace and salvation of Ukraine and Russia and the end of this fighting. And what I see here with Orthodox brothers fighting each other for me is horrific. However, I am your daily fake news antidote. I am your patriot professor who refuses to peddle in what I discern to be nothing more than pathetic wartime propaganda. And I don't care who it's coming from. I don't peddle Russian propaganda, and I don't peddle Ukrainian propaganda. I am doing my best to understand what's going on here in the theaters of military and money and media. And when I look at those theaters and I take a deep dive, particularly in what's going on in the verticals of military and money, I'm sorry, gang, there's no way around it. Ukraine is getting militarily crushed, the globalist West is getting monetarily humiliated, and the lamestream media is getting more and more revealed as an absolute fraud. That's what we're seeing unfolding right before our very eyes. And if you've been with this channel for some time now, and if not, make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. I'd love to have you as a regular here. But you'll know that all of this is happening precisely because we're seeing the rise of a new post-secular, post-globalist world where the old rules no longer apply. Russia is rising as the first post-globalist civilization state, and together increasingly with China and India, they are setting the new rules of the game, one in which the globalists in D.C. and Davos are being shut out of. And so as it turns out, it's not so much the West sanctioning Russia as much as it's Russia sanctioning globalism and the globalist West. That is what's unfolding right before our very eyes. And the fall of Mariupol may indeed be a symbol of the fall of the globalist world order as we've known it. Now, before you go, you will definitely want to check out my latest video I just uploaded on the Biden administration actively preparing for the impeachment they know is coming after this November. You're not going to want to miss it, so make sure to click on the link, and I'll see you over there. God bless.